If then you'll want to stay tuned for all the tips that we'll cover in this video. And if you're also somebody who's looking to sell your car for the most value, then you'll just want to apply these tips in the opposite direction so you can maximize the gain on your car, especially if this is a car that you built. And it might surprise you because a lot of us probably don't think of the dealerships as the best place to sell our cars. But with the economy in its current state, it might not actually be a bad idea to consider selling your car at the dealership if they have the car that you want. But even if you don't sell your car to them, there are some very good takeaways that we can take from the dealerships in how they market their cars, and something very simple as how they take pictures of the cars as well. And so, really quick before we really jump into it, the thing that really inspired the topic for today's video is somebody else who's in the BMW game, Vehicle Virals. He's kind of been on this journey with his M5. And earlier today, he kind of alluded to how he got scammed with his car. A lot of things came out here, as well as like forging documentation, and he's kind of on the fence on whether or not that he should report them, take legal actions, and all those things. Now, for frame of reference, I would say that we should try our best to resolve the issues in-house, like within yourself, the people that are involved, and all that type of stuff. However, if this is somebody who runs a business and runs their business off of this model of scamming people, I think we do have a responsibility not only to the future customers, but also the past ones. Because in his case, I understand with a following of his size, there's a lot of responsibility and consideration when you do something like that. However, there are probably a lot of people who have bought cars from this same group of people or the same company. And in that, if somebody's watching his video, they're kind of like, is it the place? I had similar issues, paperwork wasn't right. And so in that case, if it's not an individual, if it's somebody who does this seemingly on a routine basis, scamming people, I think we do have some sort of responsibility. If they don't take care of the situation, that we should make it public. That way, past customers as well as future customers are aware of the issue, and they can further inspect the cars. But if something happened with them, that business should compensate for potentially the falsified information. So if, say, for example, they say that they're going to replace a part and they don't, or they didn't, then that's something that they should take care of. So that's kind of the inspiration for today's video, or today's topic, I should say. And, from the posting pictures, it's probably all going to look nice. And I would suggest when you see a lot of, say, Instagram type pictures, be aware, these are the glamour shots. This is a highly processed, highly edited video. So if I was using this picture to sell, it's great for the cover photo because it's very attention grabbing, right? The car looks very good. But if you continue to see pictures like this, the glamour shots, the edited shots, you're not sure if there was some sort of paint damage that was done that was corrected in the post work or the post editing work here. You're not sure if the wheels are really in that condition. So just be aware if you see a lot of highly edited photos. And for the most part, if you're buying your car from the dealership, especially if you're getting it from a BMW dealership and it comes certified pre-owned, you don't really have much to worry about. It's when you start to get it from like the third-party vendors and even private party vendors. My car specifically, it didn't come from the BMW dealership, but if you're going through the dealership, I would say that the only real concern that you have is they're going to sell you on the warranty, the maintenance package, and all the things that get you coming back to the dealership. So just be aware of that. If you're going into the dealership and you're headstrong on, I'm going to buy my car at this price, or I'm walking out and I'm not buying the other things, because most of us on here do service our cars ourselves. then I would say it's fine. Go ahead to the dealership, especially if nobody else has the car that you want in the spec option that you want. So that's fine. Another thing that I would say that you should consider is, this is where I got my car at. It's a place called Auto Savvy. You can kind of think of them as the salvaged car or the salvage dealership version of CarMax, where there's very little negotiation, but the cars are fairly well priced and they're typically low mileage, but they do come with a salvage title. So, for instance, there could be flood damage, there could have been theft, there could have been some vandalism or something to that extent. What this place does is they go to those auctions type of things, they get the cars, they fix them up. And now it used to be a 3-month, I believe it was a 3-month, 30,000 mile warranty, something to that extent, or 3,000 mile warranty, something. I'm actually forgetting off the top. It probably sounds more like it. I think it was a 3-month, 3,000 mile warranty, but now it's saying that they've expanded it to a 5-year, 100,000 mile warranty. And we'll take a look at their website in just a second. But that is a very good warranty. So anybody who is looking for a really good deal and they plan to keep the car for a while, I would say consider a salvaged car, because it's not often that you would get a warranty like this and you're getting the car at relatively low miles, and it's had pretty much whatever was done on it as far as the salvage title, whatever causes a salvage title. So if there was flood damage, what they typically do is they will look into all the electronic components, replace them if they need to be replaced, recalibrate it, code it, and check that everything is okay. So anything, involved with that salvage aspect of it, they're not going to sell a car if it's not going to pass inspection. So that's what I really like about them. And the only other thing that you would really have to worry about with them is shipping the car if you're not in a state that has one of their dealerships. And that's exactly what I did. I shipped my car from, I believe, Utah to California, and they do all the paperwork. Basically, they'll say, okay, this car is going from Utah to California, and they will either email you or they will leave the paperwork in the car, and you just present that to DMV, and it's all square. There's nothing extra that you have to do. You don't have to get any additional inspections or anything like that. The transfer for state to state, everything is included in that packet. So there's nothing to worry about. I had a very good experience with them, and so that is why I'm recommending them. I would say, before we get into looking into cars from private parties, one of the things I would say, or one of the websites that most people are looking for cars on nowadays, is actually Facebook. However, I do have a slight issue with Facebook in that when you look at it over here, it says driven. Nobody really cares about the driven miles. We actually want to know what the odometer says. And this is actually a very poor listing, because when you look at it, it's just this one picture, and there's like a video here, and it kind of gives you like the walk through or the walk around, but video quality isn't the best. The orientation is completely off. And so there's only so much information that we're going to be able to pull from this. And when we look down, we can see the location. This is all generic information that Facebook will ask you a few questions and it will draft up that stuff. There's basically no other information on here. Let's see what the translation. Everything works 100. Well, sign me up. That sounds fantastic. 100. Whatever that is, right? Nothing about the maintenance, nothing about the service intervals, tires, wheels, anything that needs to be fixed, any quirks, things that are under warranty. But I guess it's 100. So, but then again, I don't know if this is really being translated correctly. So there's that. Another one we can look at, and I think this one is pretty good, is this M3 that we have here. It comes with FIRs. This is one where I'm saying it has Instagram type pictures. It's not heavily edited, but this car was definitely cleaned and staged for this. But considering that it has FIRs, it's an M3, and the owner took the time to take good pictures, it says a little bit of probably how the car was maintained, because the previous car, you can tell it's 100, whatever that is, but they didn't go through a lot of effort. They didn't take a lot of pictures. Here, he's definitely, or she is definitely going to highlight the FIRs because they hold their value quite well. Yeah, they have the red center cap, it matches the interior. We're really focusing here on the wheels, service history, Carfax, things like that. I will say, going back to this video, when it comes to paperwork and Carfax, nowadays with things like Photoshop and Lightroom, it's very easy to forge documentation. So not saying that this person is lying, but wherever they've taken the car to, right? I guess we can overlook things like oil changes, spark plugs, because we'll be able to tell that when we get there, right? But if there's anything here, say for example, things that are easy to tell. So say for example, they replaced the Mickey Mouse flange for a metal one. It would say that somewhere here on the Carfax, hopefully. And if you get to the car and it's still the plastic BMW one, then you know that there's something off. If they present the Carfax, call one of the shops that have worked on it. Ask them, do their records correspond with this Carfax? If it doesn't, something's off. Very much, if you guys watch that video, you'll kind of understand the theme here of what I'm trying to say, is that they can present you with all the paperwork that they want, but nowadays it's very easy to forge the documentation. So we owe it to ourselves before we make such a big monetary investment on a car, especially if it's something like this M3 that's going to be $65,000, that we verify some of this information. If we're willing to drop $65,000, then we should also be willing to make a 5-minute phone call to verify that some of this information is correct. This, honestly, this is just kind of outlines the packages. So rather than putting it in text over here, he just presented the dealership sticker that has all the packages that are associated with the car. Also, let's see here if they provided a VIN. Seems copy and paste from this. But if you're able to pull a VIN, oh, right here. So in the picture, there is a VIN. So you could probably call any BMW dealership, run the VIN, and if it matches, it matches. If it doesn't, something's off. And make sure that this VIN matches the VIN of the car that you physically see, right? Because it's very easy for somebody to say, oh, I left that paper at home. Make sure that the VIN matches, right? You don't necessarily have to like check the whole VIN, like the last 4 digits should match, and that should be verification enough, because like most of the first few numbers are the same between all BMWs. But essentially what I'm saying is just check that the VIN matches with the car that you're being presented with. And so again, I don't like that Facebook does this. Driven, somebody who is new, who doesn't really understand cars, will think that this car only has 26,000 miles. But that means this person drove this car 26,000 miles. Let's see if they tell us that if they are the original owner or not. Other mod. Okay. Nope. We don't know if they are the original owner. We don't have any pictures of the odometer. Oh, right here. They say that they're the first owner. So, and money is still owed. Money is still owed. So this person is asking for $65,000. Ooh, I don't know. Maybe with the FIRs and everything, you really have to take a look into it. So I would say is, even before you call this person, verify that the information they're saying is correct. They left you all the resources that you need to verify that the information is correct. generally speaking, if there's still money owed on the car, this car should still be being serviced by BMW. And so basically, if they've missed their service intervals, that's something to look into, right? So this is all the things that you have to look into when you're making that purchase. Next, here we have one that is still a private sale. One owner E90. This, we have a pretty good written, detailed description here. And so, pictures are great. Car was obviously cleaned. You can always tell by just looking at the wheels, especially when they're silver. If there's no brake dust there, they cleaned the car just for this photo. Again, speaking to probably how the car was taken care of, right? They cleaned the car before the photos. They took the time to have a good backdrop and take pictures of the car. They wrote a nice description. And so it just kind of gives you insight to probably how the car was taken care of. So this is one that I would say definitely is worth looking into. Another thing is, look at these seats. You're the first owner, and it has over 100,000 miles, 140 almost. And these seats are in really good condition, considering all that. What that also lets me know is this was probably kept in the garage. Let's see here. For sale, one owner, manual, very nice, unmodified. Let's see, garage, non-smoker, navigation, turbo change. No, I'm almost willing to bet. Let's keep looking. These seats are in really good condition for this to be kept outside. Shifter looks good. Like, see how there's like no fading here on the shift knob? Like you can't see that adhesive starting to lift off. That's also another good indicator. And see, he dusted this. Like, you can really tell, like, just look in the areas. See how there's a little dust right here in this corner? Not being nitpicky, but just letting you know is like, did the person take time to clean the car, make it presentable before they took the pictures? And he's being completely transparent, right? Up here, it says that it's been driven 139,000 miles and it matches up with the odometer. This and this should match, right? Because the person can say, oh, I got it at 100,000 miles, but I only drove it 26,000 miles. And they don't give you a picture of this. So with Facebook, just be mindful of that. Clean engine bay. Right? Of course, we're going to have to, poke our head in there and look, but it looks very clean. Badging on there. I think these are the other cars that he was mentioning earlier. So, yeah, like, look at the seats. The seats are very good. The armrest is another indicator. Almost one solid giveaway of if it was garage kept or not is, look on the rear window. Here you see that there's no tint. If the headliner is not sagging, and if the deck back here is not faded, the car was kept in the garage for sure. Or they live in one of those apartments with like the awnings, and wherever they go to work, they're able to get it somewhere out of the sun. But for the most part, I would say this car hasn't been too exposed to the sun. If the deck is good, the headliner isn't sagging, and there's no tint in the rear, I would say this is a car at under 10K. If they're willing to negotiate, it's a pretty good deal. It's something that you would want to look into and highly consider if this fits your needs. Now, moving on to older cars, even older than the 2000s. We're going into the 90s now. Be careful of cars that are lowered. With age, things just tend to break. So these older cars, the E36, they're lowered. And although they probably have the fender rolls and all those things, in order to prevent any further rubbing, they're probably running stiffer springs. And so that can put a lot of wear on the chassis. And a lot of companies will even sell reinforcement kits, not just for the sway bars. For the E36, the E46 has subframe reinforcement kits. The E36 has it too. This one is just specific to UUC. This video isn't sponsored or anything, but it was just nice to have a website that had it all easily available for me to pop up. So it's well known in the community that these cars need some sort of chassis reinforcement. At certain parts of the car, it's just a little bit weaker, but mostly it's like it's weaker, but plus it's older, right? These cars, when they were new, they didn't have these issues. But over time, as they've taken the bumps on the road, as they've gotten stiffer springs, you know, they've been lowered, they've been driven all over the place. It just takes a beating. And so that those areas that now need chassis reinforcement, those are things that you're going to want to look into. If you're getting an older car that has parts like this available for it, I would say you definitely want to take it to a shop, get it on a lift so that they can inspect those areas. Because if those areas are damaged, you're going to be in for more than you bargained for. I mean, an owner who probably hasn't had the car that long, who hasn't been, you know, fully ingrained in what the car needs, may not even know that that's an issue. So I would say if you're looking to buy like an E36 and E46, just be aware that you may have to do something as far as reinforcement. Those chassis reinforcement plates do require welding too. So it's not just something that you bolt on and it's set it and forget it. It requires some skill involved. And a few ones from Craigslist is, this is what I was saying before, is if you're looking to sell your car, copy what the dealerships are doing, right? It's easy to get kind of lost in the shuffle because they all take the generic pictures. But what you can say to that is that they're consistent. You know that the car is coming from a dealership because they have this backdrop, right? This backdrop is synonymous with, I believe it's Toyota. Let's look at the website here. BMW of Mountain View, sorry. So, and so if you're shopping around and you're like, oh, I don't want to get it from just like anybody, you know, I want to get it kind of from somebody reputable. See, Shift puts their logos here. Subaru, Toyota, they put their logos there. You know it's coming from a dealership. Not only that is, look at how the car is staged. It's staged in a way that you can see most of the car, right? It's at an angle. You can see the wheel. You get a little bit of the tire. It's presented in a slightly more aggressive stance. And like I said, is the cover photo should pop. There's nothing wrong with your cover photo being good and the other one's giving kind of like the truth behind it. Because the most important thing is you want to attract people to your listing. So see the difference between these two cars. Yes, they are different cars. However, this looks very flat, plain. It doesn't look aggressive. If you're somebody, you're probably looking at somebody who's younger on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and they want like a sports car when they're looking at BMWs. This doesn't scream sports car or like I'm getting a performance car. This does. And if you're saying, well, that's an SUV, it's not a fair comparison. Another thing to consider before we get on top of that is look at the screen real estate. You want to maximize the screen real estate to maximize the details of the car. Here, we're going horizontal versus here, we're doing portrait. You're not maximizing your potential. And if I'm not mistaken, yep, all of these other pictures are horizontal. Not only that is, this is not the only other car. Like these, it's like they took pictures from, they didn't take time out of their day to take dedicated photos of the car, right? This car is kind of seen in isolation. Yes, there are some cars in the background, but it doesn't necessarily interfere with the car, right? It doesn't, the cars like this are still making this car stand out because they're out of the way, they're kind of blurred, and they're in an opposite direction, all right? These cars are all in the same direction. So again, not maximize, not saying that you won't sell, especially when you have TE37s, I believe. but you know, you just have, like, this is good. Like, this listing on OfferUp is a good listing because they do their pictures in this format versus here. I would say that would be opposite for that app OfferUp. Okay, getting back here, let's look at these. Here, you're in a parking lot. It's not by itself. Like I said, more aggressive stance. You get to see the wheels, some of the tires, the headlights. You get to see the whole car. Here, flat profile. Here, a little better. They're trying. Right? So I would say just copy whatever the dealership is working. They are the experts as far as marketing and selling their cars. And so as long as you're able to pull up the information here, you're able to see the VIN. We talked about SULEV car mileage matching. As long as everything matches up from the pictures to the listings, you should be fine. And dealerships are usually a very safe bet. It's cars like this that you have to do the due diligence on, because here, I like that Craigslist has the odometer. Very small amount of information here. With a dealership, we are peppered with all the information of the car. If there is information that we don't need or that we don't have available, all that we need to do is click the link and boom, we are on the company's website where we have all the information that we need now, right? So just be aware of that. And if you're selling your car, you know, kind of mimic that as well. You know, this person did take time, like they took it to an isolated area. They try to stage it a little bit and take pictures. So again, this says something about the owner. But getting back into when you take a look, when you actually, that's basically all the homework that you do before you get to the car. Because let's face it, a lot of the times when we're buying these cars, they're not in the same city as us. We're going to have to drive 30, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour away. And before we invest that time, the gas, you know, if you are going there with somebody else, before we ask somebody else to take that investment of time, just do the homework. And then, you know, have your list of questions ready. Call the person, email the person, present the questions, and then get a feel. Do they seem honest? Does the answers match up? Is everything fixed as it says that it is? Or is there more work that needs to be done? And then from there, if everything checks out, if you're okay with everything that they said, if you have a good feel on the person, you think that they're honest, then proceed forward. I would say one of the things that has made it very convenient is the instant messaging feature on Facebook Marketplace. So a lot of people say, is this available? And then that's it. Person says yes, and you say, okay, I want to go see the car. But they haven't developed any questions yet, right? Cars nowadays, they're not really cheap. I want to say that they're super expensive. You can always find a good deal. However, if you're going to invest your money, you should invest a little bit of time before you drop that money. I wouldn't say that it's going to be as easy as finding a leak like this. This is an obvious leak, right? Most people, when they're selling their cars, they're going to cash this, they're going to clean it up. I've actually been to a couple of dealerships where I've told them that, hey, like, you have a coolant leak here. Would you either fix that if I bought the car, or would you give me a discount if I took it as is? And no, it's not going to be as obvious as this. It's going to be like a dried up leak, something that looks like this, something that probably missed their eyes in the shadow. They probably didn't flash a flashlight in the area. And so I said, like this is almost what I was looking at. And there was even like coolant that splashed up on the top of the hood liner. And so I said, hey, you know, you have a leak. And the guy said, no, these cars, we've inspected them all. There's no leak. This is a small mom and pop shop. And I said, there's a leak there. So before we even test drive, is the price negotiable? And I think he dropped it like $500. And I was like, no, like, I mean, like, it's great that you want to drop the price right now, but all I want to know before I test drive the car, is the price negotiable? Because I'm not going to negotiate price before I've even test driven the car. That's another thing. If you negotiate on price before you see the car and they say yes, and it's too easy to negotiate, expect other things to happen. If the negotiation goes too well, there's probably something wrong with the car. In this case, the person was kind of willing to negotiate, but they wanted me at a certain price or me to agree on a price before I test drove the car. Once you drive the car and once you physically see the car, that should give you all the information that you need to determine, does it need more work? Is it advertised properly? And if not, you need to bring down the price. Otherwise, walk away from the deal. That's one of the biggest takeaways that I can give all of you here today is don't be scared to walk away from a deal. And even if they call you back, if you drove a long ways, I say just keep driving. Like if they're not willing to come down to the price, like they know, they just say, hey, I left. Unless you're willing to come down in a little bit more price, because now I'm going to have to double back. You're taking more time, more of my gas, like more of my energy. No. So don't be scared to negotiate hard. Yes, it's a car that you want, but don't fall in love with the car until it is officially yours, right? Look for leaks like this near the Mickey Mouse flange. I would say like there's other areas where it's not too concerning. Like if you find like the white marks around the coolant expansion tank, they probably just spilled a little bit of coolant. The coolant cap probably leaked a little bit because it wasn't fully tightened. Little leaks like that are not worth negotiating over. However, they are worth cleaning up before you test drive. And then once you come back from the test drive, if the leak persists after you've retightened the cap, then it's something to address. But if you wipe it off and then go on the test drive, come back and there's nothing there, then it's probably, some spill or whatever, but not a true leak. So just be mindful of that. Is verify the paperwork, call the shops if you need to, make sure that the VIN matches up from the listing and that the odometer is what they say that it is. Also, when you get to the car, so those are all the things that you do before you see the car. When you get to the car, check for leaks. If you can, try to see the car when it's cold. There are certain things that you'll want to test, like the startup, like see how it is at the cold startup. And then don't drive it right away. Like start the car or pop the hood, look around, clean any potential leaks. And then from there, start the car and then just kind of monitor everything that's going on in the engine bay. Does that leak that you cleaned up start to come back a little bit, or does it not? And then once you've kind of like got an idea of like the hums and the haws of how it all sounds and how everything should look, close it back up, go for a test drive. Is it smooth? Does it wobble? Things like that. I would say like the car that I put the KW V1s on, I think the seller of that car did those customers a really big disservice. So they did notice that the car was shaking a little bit, and I'm not sure if it's because the wheels aren't balanced or the wheels are bent. Like to my eye, the wheel is not bent, but I don't have any measuring tools for it. But I can definitely tell that it's not balanced because there's only one of those little double-sided tape weights on there. And so that's something that should have been addressed. But basically, if the car doesn't drive smooth, if it makes any loud clunking or weird knocking noises, or when you come back from your test drive, you notice those leaks are coming back up, that price better drop. If not, just walk away. There's nothing wrong with walking away and waiting for a better deal. That's the best advice. Just to kind of give a quick touch up for people who weren't here last week. If you're somebody who's brand new to BMWs and you do all this and it looks good, but you still want that extra peace of mind, you'll probably want to look for a SULEV car. It stands for super ultra low emissions vehicle. Essentially, these cars have a 150,000 mile or 15-year warranty, whatever comes first. The ones that I would say that are worth it now, because BMW has been doing this for a while now. So that E90 that we were looking at earlier does like that generation of cars do qualify with the correct engine, but those are about to expire soon. So I would say that the ones that you should really want to look into are the N26 that you could find in like the F30s and the F22s. There are other chassis that have them too. So anything emissions related, so the timing chain guide, your catalytic converter, your turbo, if any of that stuff breaks, it's under warranty underneath that mileage or year mark. And so BMW will replace it for free. The most modern engine to have a SULEV is the B, I think it's the B46, I believe. And it's found in the X1s, and I believe the 3 Series now have them as well. So if you want that extra peace of mind, just know that these aren't the most powerful engines that BMW produces, and they're not the engine that BMW is famous for, because these are 4-cylinder engines versus a straight 6. But have the peace of mind that BMW basically with these engines, they took their 6-cylinder engine, they cut off 2 cylinders and they put it in there. That's essentially what these engines are. They are the chopped off version of the 6-cylinder variant. So the N20, N26 engine is essentially an N55 with 2 cylinders lopped off. The B46 is essentially the B58 with 2 cylinders lopped off. Very huge oversimplification for those of you who are true BMW enthusiasts. Those of you who are very technical, please excuse me, because that was a huge oversimplification. But just remember, I'm explaining that to somebody who's probably new to BMW for the first time, who has probably never bought a BMW before. So we're keeping it very, very simple. And there's not too much with these cars. Like, as you get going with them, you'll get familiar with like the engine naming, the coding, and basically the order in which BMW does their labeling. Eventually it'll make sense over time. And the community, especially us here in the live chat right now, we're a pretty warm community. So if you have any questions, concerns, if you feel that like the forums are a little bit too rough, because I know that a lot of people on forums will say things like, oh, why don't you put it in search? Which I think is obnoxious, because rather than answering the person's question, you decided to type that. So if you feel that that's not a place where you want to engage, you're more than welcome to join us here anytime. And at this time, we will be jumping into the Q&A section, which who is starting us off today? It is Elliot. Give me a quick second here. I'm going to hydrate really quick. Elliot. Fritz, I love your channel. Can you recommend a place where I can learn how to make repairs to my 328i? I'm in the Bay Area. Depends on which chassis. But if you're talking about like F30 or E90-ish generation BMW, YouTube is good. Justin's really good. He has the B58 engine, so I believe that you have the N20. I have a few videos out on the N20, but if anything like chassis, suspension related, Justin's really good for that. Thick Whips is another one. He doesn't really do DIYs. He kind of did back then, but not so much anymore. Would be another resource. So I would say start there. You can always just type your car in. Like, it's a very common chassis, so there are a lot of up-and-comers who have had that chassis and have done, well, a lot of videos on it. Let's see here. Zach. Yo, so I'm having this issue with my transmission, and it started ever since I got my spec clutch in. On cold start, it doesn't want to go into gear, but will have a tad push. There's no grinding / screeching. I mean, is there a break-in period? That's the only thing I can think of, since that's when it started. Another thing is, I guess you could ask, I would say go back to the company, ask them if there's a break-in period, if what you're experiencing is normal. If it isn't, what the typical remedies are. If they can't point you in the right direction, whatever shop that installed that for you should be able to answer those questions for you. And there's no harm in asking both, just to maybe get confirmation that whatever you're about to do will work, or just another set of ideas. Screeching sounds, and the gearbox feels a lot more notchy / resistance to it, and occasionally it'll get stuck in first when driving, but if I release the clutch and then push it back in, it'll come out of gear. I guess if you did that pivot bearing, that could help. You could also try doing the clutch delay valve delete. It's a pretty quick job. If you're familiar with your car normally as a manual, then yeah, clutch valve delay delete is what I would point you in the direction in potentially. Car Snob, how's it going? Spec clutch dampener, I'm guessing. Let's see here. Oh, you didn't say. Potentially. Juice. I think these sites should have a mandatory description and pictures. The sites... Nothing worse than an ad without details. Are you referring to the to those chassis mounts earlier? Because it's just the part, it's not actually of it welded in, or the cars. If you're talking about the cars, it's hard for Facebook because Facebook doesn't actually publish it. It's like up to each one of us as the seller to publish the photos. And yes, to your remark, it is frustrating when somebody says, oh, you know, I have a 3 Series for sale. It's one picture, or it's the video and that bad video orientation with a very limited description. However, I would say just skip those cars. Usually the person is like, oh, are you going to buy it? Are you going to take the time to buy it right now? Like, buy it right now. Like, come right now. And basically they're saying, oh yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. Service is good. Yeah, everything's done. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did it. Yeah, don't worry, man. It runs good. It runs good. Hey man, it drove here, didn't it? Hey, you test drove it and it worked, didn't it? I would say just skip those. Like, if the person's not willing to put enough effort to sell their car, you know, I would say reward those people who took the time to take the pictures, clean the car, write a good description, right? I would say a car that I'm willing to go see in person is a car that I'm willing to buy off of the description if it is accurate. If the pictures and description are 100% accurate, would I buy this car? If your answer is yes, that's a car that you go see. If there's barely any description and there's no picture, would you buy a car like this? Like that one. I want that car. That's basically what you're doing when you buy a car with a listing like that, with like one picture and it's 100. Right? So if you wouldn't buy a car like this, don't buy a car like that on the internet. Sorry, my contacts are kind of drying out. Mayuresh, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hey, I have a 2014 F33 N55. It's at 80,000 kilometers. I recently got a drivetrain malfunction notification and an engine light. Would you say it's the spark plugs? Drivetrain malfunction? No, that has something to do with your... It could just be like an electric gremlin. A lot of people say that's a common thing that I've seen, is that drivetrain issue. Some people say, oh, it's spark plugs. Pull your spark plugs and just take a look. Like, because the last two are a little hard to get to, like, just pull the first 4. And if they look like they need to be replaced, go ahead and replace it. But usually the drivetrain malfunction happens because you did some sort of a suspension modification and the car hasn't recalibrated yet. like sway bars, or you put in or you change the coilovers and you didn't cancel the EDC. Or you put in the coilovers and the height is not evenly matched. The drivetrain malfunction I've also seen with a low battery voltage. That could happen. Another one is, so that car that I was talking about, the one with the KW V1s, because the wheels weren't balanced or they're bent, it gave the car a lot of shake. That caused a drivetrain malfunction. When we switched over wheels, I didn't get that issue anymore. So the drivetrain malfunction can happen for a number of reasons. Spark plugs, honestly, just pull them and see. If they need to be replaced, they need to be replaced. And they could be related, they could be unrelated. Because I'm still using OEM, never changed. When I drove the car, it smelled like gas, car shaking, loss of power, spark plugs or ignition coils, or both. If you haven't replaced them, you're going to be there anyways. Just replace them both at the same time. So get a pack of coils, get a pack of spark plugs. You shouldn't need to grease it. And then that's it. And hopefully that answered your question. So if it's your first time here on the live chat, normally what we do is we cover the topic first, and then we go into the Q&A section at the end, just so that it's kind of like uniformed and the thoughts are all kind of in a line. So if anybody watches this on replay, at least it's somewhat organized. There's not a few questions answered over here and then a few questions answered over there. Basically, this screen, as soon as this screen pops up, if somebody watches this on the replay, they can jump to the portion where this screen pops up and they know that all of these questions get answered in order. Kavrik, that would absolutely not be spark plugs. You might have a ruptured fuel line. Yeah, that could be it too. But go get it looked at by a good mechanic or the dealer and get the work done by someone or a place you trust, I'm assuming. Yep, I couldn't agree more. Like, if you feel uncomfortable doing it, just take it to a place that, somebody in your network, or at least on forums or whatever, has a good reputation. Check their ratings and see all, how things are with the shop, and then go from there. Elliot, 2013, what car did you say that you have at 2013? So you have an F30. F30 is a very popular platform. YouTube is a place where I would look. Do you do repairs yourself? Yeah. So all the videos I'm the one in the videos. I try to focus on the thing that I'm working on. I'm not always necessarily like, you have to see my face during the install, but I'm the one who's always doing everything in the videos. So I do the basically all the work on the car, the recording, the editing, everything. I don't have a team or anything. It's just me. Rodrigo, hello Fritz, I love your videos. I'll buy coilovers, but I would like to know if your 235 has EDC. It does. According to what I'm understanding about coilovers, you bought KWDDC, and for those you need EDC. So EDC is electronic dampen control from BMW. DDC is just the KW way of saying it. But it links up. So it's just, this is BMW's lingo, that's KW's lingo, but it's the same thing. It'll work. You could also just get like a set of like V3s or V1s and get the EDC delete kit, or code out your EDC, and that will work too. If you don't really care about having the control over it. It's very minimal, honestly. If I were to do it again at that price point, I probably would have gotten a set of V3s, saved a little bit of money, did the delete, and call it a day, and just be able to adjust it on my own. Neffing Tales. Fritz, I learned so much from your channel. I did all the full bolt-on upgrades on my N55 through 35i by watching your videos. Would you say clutch delay valve delete is worth it? It's something that's been on my mind. I mean, it's worth it in the sense that it doesn't cost anything. If it's not giving you issues, don't do it. If it bothers you, then yeah, do it. I don't regret doing it. I think if I didn't lower the car and I didn't have the front lip, it probably wouldn't bother me as much because I don't need to take driveways as slow or inclines as slow. But because I do a lot of like just like hanging out in the friction zone and like leaning on the gas pedal in order to get the driveway. And that's where I started to notice a lot of the issues. So that's when I did my clutch. That's when I did the CVD delete. But if it's not bothering you, then it isn't worth it because you're fixing something that doesn't need to be addressed. But if it is causing you issues, then yes. Never mind, you pretty much answered. Okay. Sounds like bad injectors. I have the same car. It just happened to me same year too. Okay, good. So this is what I mean. Like the chat, we're good here, right? Like, any Fishing Tales could have just said, oh, like look it up on forums or whatever. But he didn't. He had a good approach and just saying like, hey, I've had the similar issues. It's probably this. It's not this. So this is what I like about our chat. I like about everybody being here is we're not obnoxious and saying like, oh, look at this guy. This person's like new and doesn't understand anything. Like, no, like everybody once started out brand new to BMW. And it's nice to see that people like you are being gracious to the people who are newer to the platform and maybe have never encountered this problem before. So thank you for, making this a welcoming place and a better place for people to learn and get to know each other. Fabian, what should the gap for a spark plug on an M235i stage 2 bolt-on, I know downpipe, what's SP? What I will say to this is whoever you're getting your stage 2 from should tell you this. So in the video where I did the spark plug change, that's according to BM3's guidelines. If you have your car from MHD or I believe like Beamer Tech is coming out with one, whoever you're getting your tune from, they should be providing you with the specs to gap your plugs. And then of course, if you don't have a tune, then you just go to the BMW spec, which usually you just go with the Bosch ones, and whatever it is out the box is set. Any Fishing Tales, thank you for coming in again. 0.022. Would you mind us telling us which platform you're referencing? If I'm not mistaken, that's BM3. I think BM3 says 0.022 to 0.023. If my memory serves me correct. But whatever it is on that video is what it should be. Elliot, I get drivetrain malfunction and fuel injector cleaner seems to fix it. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's tied to the fuel injectors, but yeah, I've heard that the injector spark plugs sometimes can interfere with that. I guess it's maybe the modules somehow go to the same relay, or I don't know. You would think that like mechanically speaking, they're unrelated, but seeing how a lot of it is electronically orientated and could be combined, maybe that's what's happening here. Yeah, I don't know. But Elliot, thank you for lending in that insight. Yeah. Like mechanically speaking, if we're just looking at like how things work, like if your fuel injectors were bad, should it affect your drivetrain? No. But with everything kind of being tied together in like, say, like the motherboard of things, if that's even saying it correctly, signals could get mixed up. It's not correct. Like your train of thought wouldn't be my spark plugs are bad, or my drivetrain, I'm getting a drivetrain malfunction, so I need to check my spark plugs. Like that wouldn't normally happen. But this is what I mean is something's going on there. The components are talking to each other in some sort of sense. Fabian, you're very professional. Thank you. Well, I try to be. I do want to make the place welcoming for people, you know, for experienced people and for people who are new. And by no means am I an expert or do I know it all. You know, Elliot chimed in to confirm what I was saying, so I'm very grateful for that. Any Fishing Tales was great for the gap information and letting some insight there as well. There's another guy on here frequently, Soul Slinger. Car Snob is very knowledgeable as well. So there's a lot of people here that I would consider more knowledgeable than myself, and I'm grateful, very grateful, to have them in chat, because I'll tell you guys this: if I don't know the answer to something, I'll tell you flat out that I don't know. And then as I'm going through the comment section, one of them has answered it, and so I'm grateful for that. And so thank you for everybody for being here and participating in the chat, not just with me, but with each other as well. Elliot, if I brought you my car, could you inspect it and recommend a course of action? I generally don't like to do that, just because of, I mean, you know, like I just said, as I'm not a professional. If you want to do something like that, I would say you could just take it to any shop. They do, I think, inspection nowadays anywhere from like $100 to $200, depending on the shop that you take it to, and they could point you in the right direction. As far as like what needs to be done on the car, if it's not giving you any issues, nothing needs to be done. But let's see here. Okay. If you mean like maintenance wise, I would say maintenance wise on these cars, charge pipe, follow the course of air. So the intake is fine. You don't need to do anything with that. The turbo inlet pipe, the boost pipe, the intercooler, and the charge pipe. You don't necessarily need to do all of them, but if you're doing one of them, it just makes it easier to do it all in one go. The charge pipe and the turbo inlet pipe, those are prone to breaking just with heat cycling. They're plastic, they're prone to crack and break. It's much easier to install it with the intercooler out. After you've done that, if the car gives you like shaking, figure out where the shaking is coming from. Is it coming from blown out engine mounts? Is it as simple as needing your wheels rebalanced? Are your wheels bent? I would say like if just figure out where the car is giving you problems. If it's not giving you problems, then, you know, no news is good news. Check the gasket, so your valve cover gasket, your oil filter housing gasket. Check your Mickey Mouse flange for the coolant. Look for anywhere that feeds coolant to or from, oil to and from. See if you have any of those areas that we mentioned earlier, like this. If you see anything like this, clean it up and see if it starts to come back. That is indication that you have a leak in the area. That could be coolant, that could be oil. In this case, it's coolant. If you see this around the plastic and metal of your engine, that's probably your valve cover. So I would say start there. If you're just looking for routine maintenance, start with all your fluids. Let's see. Yeah, it's a kind of broad question. Just on like what you need to do next. So definitely I played this up for the algorithm, so please excuse me, but you know, as far as like the fluids that you need to do, this video kind of covers most of them except for like some of the X drive stuff like the transfer case. But maintenance wise, this should cover you, and then go from there. Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm not a professional mechanic, so there are things like if I just take a look at it and it's not on a lift, there are things that I could miss, right? I guess like a better question for me to ask is, you know, what are you experiencing with the car that makes you think that there needs to be something done? Fabian, what's CDV? Clutch delay valve. So if you have a manual transmission car, there is a, you know, there's the line that looks like a brake line from, you know, the, I guess very oversimplified. Basically, when you press the clutch pedal in, it pushes fluid, it puts pressure on your clutch to let you change gears. In that line that looks like a brake line, there's like there's a valve essentially, but it's basically like a reducer, right? So if the diameter is this, there's another like spacer or like the valve in there is like that. It's like a much smaller pin needle. And supposedly what that does is it prevents unnecessary wear on the clutch, like for people who are unfamiliar with driving manuals. And so it won't let you necessarily like dump the clutch, like put too much pressure on the clutch unnecessarily. But if you already know how to drive a manual, or if you've been driving that car for a long time, then it's something that you shouldn't be concerned with. And what it can do instead is not give you or not allow you to have enough pressure on the clutch quick enough. So eventually, if you have your foot on the clutch long enough, eventually that pressure will just go. But if you want like pressure on the clutch immediately, no delay, that's what deleting that valve will do. And it's not popping up right now, man, and it is a little slow. So, and that's essentially what this video is. I do like a little drive in the beginning to try to make it occur. And I did exaggerate the problem in the video just to give the visual of it. And then at the end, we did an after. So it doesn't normally happen in the situation that I showed in the video. I just did it to agitate the situation. But it does happen mostly when you're like in first gear, when you're doing like slow speed stuff. Like if you're trying to creep on a driveway because you have a lip and your car is lowered, that's kind of when it can happen. It can happen like if you're at a stoplight and you're at an angle and you try to put it into first, that's when it can act up on you. Or under higher acceleration when you're going from like second to third, or sorry, from first to second or third to fourth in my case. So it's odd gear to even gear, but never from fifth to sixth. I'm already pretty fast. And so I'm assuming that the G-forces aren't as strong in those cases. I don't know why, but if it's while the car is moving, if it's not in first gear, or if I'm already in first gear, it'll be from first to second that it would lock up, or it would be from third to fourth that it would lock up. But now with it gone, it doesn't happen anymore. Elliot, my goal is to have this car last forever. Yeah, the 328, so I'm assuming that's an N20, N26. On those cars, just see if the timing chain and the timing chain guide have been replaced. If you have an N26 engine, because it should be SULEV, you shouldn't really have much to worry about. If your car does say SULEV underneath that sticker in the engine bay, underneath your hood, you should have a sticker that looks something like this. And if it says SULEV, then you do qualify for that federal program where it's covered for 150,000 miles or up to 15 years from its production date. So your car will last you at least 15 years if it is a SULEV model. And basically anything emissions related. So any of the piping, the turbo, catalytic converter, it's all covered. Some of them even cover that timing chain guide. So you should have peace of mind. The only thing is that you'd have to worry about is downtime while they verify the warranty and they order the parts and do the installation. But yeah, I would say just follow the common tips of changing out the charge pipe, boost pipe, intercooler. Be careful with it because of the timing chain issues. However, the newer chains, they're much stronger, and the guides, the ones that were replaced or the ones that replaced the old guides, are much stronger, or I should say they're a much stronger plastic, so they're more durable. So if you've replaced it under that warranty, or if you replace it anytime soon, you should be getting a part that lasts longer than the original stuff. Rodrigo, thanks for your answer. How do you know you have EDC in my 235? If you have an M235i, you have EDC. Those cars just had it. I do not see any cables from the top of the coilovers. It's not on the top. It's actually in the wheel well on the side. So let me see if I can pull up the video. Yeah, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, the M235i's, all of them had EDC. Okay, so let's see here. This shouldn't be plagiarism because it's my own video. But let's see here. So right there. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Right there. So it's not on the top of the strut. It's actually in the wheel well off to the side. So if you have this, you have to just disconnect it. And as you can see, just use a little pick tool to pull it out. That's the EDC. Fabian, thank you. No problem. Happy to help. Any fishing tails? I've been using MHD Stage 2 Plus on my N55 with 0.022 gap on the spark plugs. It runs pretty well with my car so far, 6 months now. Okay, cool. So really good there because I'm running BM3. So this is a good comparison. You know, I've had no issues with BM3. It seems like you have no issues with the MHD. I daily my car. That's the same gap setting that I have. So it's good. I forgot who asked the question, but this is good because you know both of our setups now, right? You know that MHD and BM3 run similar gaps on their spark plugs for stage 2. Thanks for sharing that. Elliot, I got the idea about fuel injectors from a video. I know nothing. I'm a software dude. Hey man, we all start from somewhere. It won't be soon. I mean, you're in software, so you're smart. So you'll be up to speed in no time. You know, once you learn the patterns, with cars, there's always like a pattern recognition. Well, I suppose with everything there is, but once you pick up the pattern with BMWs, how things work, torque spec, even, or like the nuts and bolts that they use, you'll have this down. Some videos recommend switching from 30 weight to a 40 weight to stop burning oil. Would you endorse this? For the N20, N26, I wouldn't. unless you're tuned and that's what they recommend. I've run 30 weight just fine, because the thing is that yes, technically it would, like, let's say this works, right? I'm not saying that it would, but sometimes switching to a heavier weight oil or a thicker weight oil will prevent the burning. However, it doesn't stop the problem of your car is running hot, right? So you would solve the issue of burning oil, right? You wouldn't be burning oil if this works. However, your car is still running hot for some reason. So you still need to figure that out. I mean, some people even like do like 0-20 weight on 328s. So I would say if you change your spark plugs, your coils, go from start there. If you're still burning, I mean, you should still check your gaskets though. But if your gaskets aren't leaking, if you don't see that any of that stuff that we talked about earlier, change your coils and your spark plugs. Then go from there. Rodrigo, thanks. No problem. Happy to help. Soul Slinger, my guy. How's it going? Check out E39 Source for BMW repairs. I believe they do all BMWs. They may be near your area. If it's burning oil, I wouldn't drive it, as you could soak up the catalytic converters. Oh, this is what I mean. The expert has arrived, everybody. See, I didn't even think of that, but I mean, I've heard, like someone has told me this before. So and it's been such a long time, so it's definitely not at the forefront of my mind. But Soul Slinger is like a true mechanic. Like, he works on cars all the time, and so like the whole processing, the whole train of thought, like his mind is like there, like it's always there. Like see what I said is very superficial, right? It's just like, oh, you're probably leaking oil, so I just think like very simplistically, like probably got a leak here or there, and you know. You're still running hot, so maybe so it's very surface level. But him, like, he's really thinking down the chain. Like, okay, like what happens to that oil if everything's good? It's affecting your catalytic converter. So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, this chat is definitely better with you here, man. I hope all is well with you. I hope you had a good weekend. I know that I have been procrastinating with the Discord chat. And I should have probably prefaced this, but these last few weekends have been very busy. And this weekend too, because we have Week Fest here in San Jose, and actually a few of my friends are hosting booths, so I'll probably be there this weekend, and trying to get ready for that this weekend. I have not forgotten. I will jump on that though. We will get to that. Hopefully by the next week, unless you're going to the Keys Auto Show, which I know a lot of people are going. I probably won't be going to that because we have Week Fest the week before. Summer months and car events go hand in hand. I hope you're doing well, man. I know that you're working long days and everything. I hope all is well with you. Elliot, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for all your advice. I really appreciate it. No problem at all. Feel free to jump in. We do this every Tuesday. So feel free to jump in the chat. Look, if you're looking for a shop and you are in the Bay Area, you could head over to SV Bimmer. They are located in Santa Clara, UQ. Like I said, I mean, the best I could do is take a look at it in a parking lot, go for a drive with you, give you like what Soul Slinger did there was like a perfect example of what I meant, right? Like, I could take a look, but I only know what I know, right? And I'm not a professional. But my guys at the shop, they are. So my guys at, like, if say for example, Soul Slinger wasn't here today with us on the chat, all right? Because he is a busy guy. But let's just say he wasn't here to lend us his insight for today. And you took what I said and ran with it. What Soul Slinger said is still true. However, if you let me take a look at it and we went off of that, that would have been that. But if you take it to my guys at the shop, they probably would have given you this insight right here. And so that's why I would prefer to have you take it to somebody who's a professional. Let's see. Soul Slinger could be valve seats, piston rings, or a simple vacuum problem. Let's see. Then I mean, like this is. I don't do good with vacuum stuff. And this stuff, I wouldn't know how to test for it. I wouldn't know how to identify it or how to disqualify it from the possibilities of things that could go wrong. Vacuum leak, it would have to be obvious for me to know. Like there's certain things like with the valve cover, there's a way to test the vacuum on the valve cover. But the thing is, if you have a leak on the valve cover, it doesn't necessarily mean that the valve cover is bad. Like that is one of the indicators that it's bad. However, if you have a leak that's really bad, then that could be causing the pressure to not being read. But yeah, so like this is what I mean is like when you take it to professional, you're going to get this level of detail and experience and knowledge to give you the information of what you're asking for. And Elliot, I'm happy that you met Soul Slinger and that you approve. He's awesome. So if you're here every week, I mean, Soul Slinger, I hope I don't I'm not kind of like coercing you to be here. I love that you're here, but I also know that you're a busy guy. Elliot, if you come here on Tuesdays, more than likely Soul Slinger is here. There's a few other people who jump in the chat who are knowledgeable too, if Soul Slinger is unable to make it, that I consider very knowledgeable. And so if there's ever a question that I can't answer or that I can't answer fully, Soul Slinger always has my back. So I look forward to seeing you again. If you do any work on your car, you know, send me a DM message, tag me and stuff or whatever. I'm more than happy to help, and I would love to see your build. On TikTok and Instagram, my handle is VroomTuber, and I think you would love to be in our Discord chat when we do make it. I promise. In July, probably the second weekend, so after the 4th is when I'm looking, is probably like my least busy weekend that I can identify right now. Okay, Soul Singer said wouldn't hurt to take a look at it. Could be an easy fix. Okay. Yeah, up to you, Elliot. I mean, like I said, you know, you can send me a DM here, or you could take it to my buddies over at SC Bimmer and tell them that I recommended you. And you know, they should be able to hook you up as well. But yeah, Soul Slinger, you've been nothing but supportive. That boat video that you sent me, that was a massive project. I'm not good with wood, woodworking or any of that stuff. That's a huge group project. That thing was awesome. Yeah, so I am gonna link up with you. I'm looking at that second weekend in July for us to get things going. And then if you know anybody who would want to be a moderator, probably that would be very helpful for me. I know I have not been the best on Discord. When we make our chat, I'll make a commitment to get better with that. With that, thanks. With that, I believe that's it for us today. Thank you, everybody. Elliot, it was a pleasure meeting you. If you're here in the Bay Area, if you're available this Sunday, just do a search. WeekFest San Jose, WeekFest, WeekFest in San Jose. I'll be there. My buddies are Obsessed Studios and SV Bimmer. They should have booths there. I will be there probably a little later in the day. And it'd be a great chance for not just Elliot, but any of you guys here in the Bay Area who are, you know, going to be there. I would love to see you guys there. And so with that, we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you, Elliot, for being here with us today. Anything else, drop questions, video topic suggestions over here at my handle at TikTok and Instagram. Hope all of you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.